The battle of wizards and warriors continues with iron swords. The evil wizard Malkil will take the shape of the earth, wind, water, and fire. Farewell! The fate of the world is in your hands!
You're listening to the Piercing Wizard podcast, and I'm your host, Ryan Willett. I'm a professional body piercer with 20 years experience. I travel around the world teaching technique and safety classes, and I'm a member of the Association of Professional Piercers. Listen in as I talk to my friends and colleagues about our industry so we can all stay sharp. Hi everybody, how you doing? Thanks for coming back to the first episode once we've returned from the 2023 APP conference in Las Vegas. I was out there for the week with Lola. We taught some classes. We did a live podcast. It was really nice. It was a really good week to recharge our batteries, to spend some quality time together. I always appreciate Lola being able to absorb some sun and to go out and have some nice dinners together. But it was a really packed work week. Want to say thank you to everyone who stopped by the Piercing Wizard booth in the expo and picked up your exclusive shirts. And I want to say thank you to everyone who signed up at patreon.com/RyanPBA during conference week. And since I've come home, welcome, and I hope you enjoy the content. I'm not going to waste too much of your time with adverts today. And I really just want to talk about my first guest. I did record a handful of podcasts, not a ton, because I was very, very busy. But I got a couple of them, and I think they're pretty special. And the first one I would like to present to you is with what I believe to be the first Indian piercer to ever attend the APP conference. And as Jason details, really the first person from that entire subcontinent that's been able to make it out to the APP conference. So it's a huge deal. Jason was one of the legacy scholars for this year. He's a piercer from Mumbai, India. I met him at the BMXNet conference in Germany in the fall of 2022. And I was really happy to see Jason at conference as one of our scholars. We talk a lot about traditional piercing jewelry in India. India piercing has been a commonplace practice for thousands of years. A lot of the different jewelry designs that we might be familiar with as Western piercers have a lot of their roots in Indian jewelry design. Things like internally threaded jewelry, threadless jewelry, nostril screws, things like that. A lot of those things can be credited towards that subcontinent and Indian piercing in particular. So it's really interesting to have Jason come on. He talks about traditional Indian jewelry and its connections to modern Western jewelry, European-made jewelry, things that you might think of as titanium, internally threaded, threadless. And we talk a lot about gold, too. Big cultural differences, huge economic differences between North America and India. Gold, the gold that they're working with is typically a higher carat, now something a little bit closer to pure, typically a 22 carat. And where is the line of value? Some people might specifically value the material, and that's why they want it so pure. Other people might value maybe the more like crafting skill that goes into it, all the time, all the jeweler hours that go into making these beautiful pieces of jewelry. So it's a really fascinating conversation to talk about. I know Jason is preparing some sort of a class about traditional piercing in India. I would look forward to seeing that at future conferences. I know he's working on that one. I'm really interested to learn more about actual like modern progressive body piercing in different countries around the world. People like Paul King and others really do well to document the historical nature of body piercing, but it's also important to realize that these are everyday practices around the world, and I want to know how people out there are piercing and living with piercings. Lola brings a lot of good points up, connecting the conversation that we're having with Jason, culturally, historically, economically, tracing it right back to the roots of everyday body piercing for a lot of us, different economic issues, logistic issues, healing and aftercare issues. So it's a really fascinating perspective to hear during the conversation as well. And it's a fun one. So expand your horizons, body piercing outside of your hometown, your home state, your home studio. And let's get into this interview with Jason D'Souza, and I'll be back a little bit more at the end. Explaining like threadless and things like that. And it's a very traditional design that comes from India. You might already be familiar with something similar.
Hundreds of years.
Yeah.
Also, there's a part of India that does threading the opposite way.
Okay.
And for me, it is so confusing. I mean, if anybody gets that kind of jewelry over here.
Yeah.
Because you tighten it clockwise.
The phrase in Western culture is righty-tighty, lefty-loosey.
Exactly. That's how mostly all over the world is. But
Yeah.
there's just one part of India that makes the jewelry the opposite way.
Okay.
So it is righty-loosey.
Right. So was there ever an explanation? Like, are left-handed people more prevalent there, or was it just random happenstance?
Random. Yeah, probably.
Thousands of years ago, someone was like, I don't know, this way.
Yeah, I'll do it this way. Yeah.
Okay. Well, so to start, why don't you introduce yourself, and then we'll introduce our guest.
My name's Lola Slider, and I'm the piercer and owner of Forest Piercing in Glasgow, Scotland, and the co-assistant manager of the Piercing Wizard podcast.
And we are here in Las Vegas at the APP conference, and our guest for this show is one of our scholars. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Jason D'Souza. I'm from Mumbai and the owner of Tatao Tattoo and Piercing Studio. And it's great to be here with you, Ryan and Lola.
It's great to have you here. We met at BMXNet in Germany.
Yes.
Was that your first body art conference outside of India?
I've been to a lot of tattoo conferences in the last 6 years, I would say, with my travels all across. But that definitely was my first primarily piercing-only conference. And the entire energy levels were completely different as against all my experiences with tattoo conferences. Mm-hmm. Loved the bit of the camaraderie that piercers shared, and I think that continued even over here in Las Vegas, and that's fabulous.
Yeah, I think the dynamics in a lot of studios is there's a handful of tattooers and a piercer. So the piercer's the kind of middle child, or the kind of one that's a little bit left out.
Yes.
And so when you go to tattoo conferences and things, the tattooers, they're used to being in a little pod, and they're maybe not as open to meeting other people, and they're a little bit more guarded, whereas piercers are just so excited to be around other piercers, because a lot of them don't work in that environment, so they're just piercing's the main thing, yay.
yeah, you do feel like it's a little bit more of your event rather than just an event that you're at.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I used to be a tattoo artist. I gave up tattooing completely for pursuing piercings only, but still, I've found it so different that piercers are naturally welcoming towards other piercers as against tattoo artists. Not putting them down, but in general.
Yeah, it's just a different mindset.
It's a different
because
mindset.
of the structure within most studio life. It's a different shift when you go to a group event.
True.
Yeah. So, we obviously met, and you got to make a lot of other connections. And one of the other people at the BMXNet conference every year is Kale, who's an APP board member. But we are also on a panel that helps to find the scholars for every year's APP conference. And sometimes when we're at different events, especially outside of the U.S., we're kind of scouting people where we know that not to pat you on the back too hard, but the special cases out there where it's maybe they need a little bit more access, or a spotlight, or different opportunities. And I think after the first conversation that we had with you, we ran into each other in a hallway, and we're like, we got to get Jason to conference. We have to get him there.
I think you guys were instrumental in having me here, so thank you so much for this experience as well, and the scholarship. It's just been fabulous.
Well, it's not something we just kind of threw it at you. You earned it through the application process and all the hard work that you put into your career. So it's great to see piercers be able to get opportunities through something like the scholarship, because you might have been able to come to conference eventually, but maybe this got you here sooner?
I completely agree with that. This was not on my cards this year for sure. BMX being my first, I was still trying to adapt to what is happening. I was planning to go to UK APP first, because that was an easier. I visit London more, UK more often than any other country. Every year I'm in the UK for at least 2 months.
Okay.
So Wales and Scotland being one of my favorite spots to visit.
Really?
And yes, definitely. And last year I was in Scotland. I did the loop from Glasgow to Edinburgh. I drove. Yeah. But yes, definitely sooner than later. I'm here, and it's been great. And I think what APP also does for the scholars is an amazing thing, a great opportunity for people across the world, and it's superb.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's why we're all here. Like, the APP conference used to be mostly U.S. piercers for a long time, and then, as the news of what the conference was spread, you would start to see a few people trickle in from Europe, from the UK, Central and South America, a bit, Canada, bit by bit.
Yeah.
But I think that you would be our first Indian attendee. Have you heard otherwise?
So, yeah, I've not heard otherwise, but I've also been told that I'm the first in that entire subcontinent.
Yeah.
It's not only just India, but that entire subcontinent, and it's a very proud moment for me. And obviously, I keep thanking you and Kale constantly, but yes, I'm glad to be here. Yeah.
Well, tell us a little bit about what piercing is like in India. Is it more like, are you doing more of a narrow scope, like nostril piercings, ear piercings? Are you doing lots of other body locations? Like, what's the piercing culture like in India?
As a culture, you're aware that we've been doing piercings for thousands of years.
Yeah.
We've got documented evidence of nostril piercings, ear piercings, and also lobe stretching.
Mm-hmm.
We have statues on temples that are probably 1,000 years old or more than that, and we have deities that have stretched earlobes and stuff like that, and have stones in them and things of that. So we do not know 100% what kind of metals were used during that time, but yeah, there is documented evidence that we have that. There is also documented evidence on gentle piercings, actually.
Cool.
in India, and that's something that I'm working on to put that together. I was telling you the last time. So for me, when I started off, yes, it was primarily only nose and ears. There was nothing more that we were doing at that time. I started about 18 years ago, and the eyebrow piercing started, and then things started. People started exploring other things. My own grandmother and her mother actually had close to 20 odd piercings on her ears, and
Cool.
they've been my inspiration. Somewhere down the line, the ear curation aspect of it, kind of simmered in India,
Mm-hmm.
probably in the 60s or the 50s or whatever. And that's something that I started striving to, bring it alive, kind of a thing. Today, I do piercings all over the body. I was one of the only experienced piercers for intimate piercings. So I do a lot of intimate piercings as well, and a lot of customers of mine fly down from different cities into my city to get piercings that are not offered by other piercers.
Cool.
Across. So
Cool.
yeah, it's great. It's great. It's from a professional piercing perspective. India is still in its nascent stages. It's still picking up. There are a lot of piercers that are learning health and safety and hygiene and the right kind of metals and the right kind of needles to be used and all of that. I've been doing a few sessions with our existing piercers, basic sessions around sizes, the right size of jewelry, the right size of needles. Possibly, I've named that session "Size Does Matter."
Yeah.
And so I've started, helping whatever I learn from my travels. I'm just trying to pass it on to other piercers across the country, and that's what I'm trying to do my bit there.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Do you find that your clients are trying to kind of capture maybe like a Western style of body piercing, or do you feel like, like right now in the U.S. it's all about tiny little ear piercings and things like that, but both of us, we have a soft spot for like the 90s style, bigger, heavier, more extreme kind of thing. So what's popular in India?
So do you feel that your clients are embracing traditional culture, or do you feel that they're being influenced by the Western influx of cosmetic body piercing, commercial body piercing, or is it kind of a mixture?
Yeah.
I would say it's a kind of a mixture, but like India as well. I'll show you some pictures. Traditional piercing jewelry is all chunky, and of course we do 22 karat gold and heavy gold. So we have a lot of people, one or two generations above us, who have naturally stretched ears because of the weight of the jewelry that they used to wear,
Right.
and not like they've tried to stretch it, but they've naturally stretched.
Yeah.
I've also seen that with different kind of piercings that I do, and I push it out there, people are able to understand that these are the new things that can be done. Not new as in my creations, but something that's not normally done in India. So yes, the clusters, I work a lot on clusters and stuff like that. I learn a lot from piercers across the globe as well as to different things like the small tiny jewelry and multiple stacks that you spoke about. So that is picking up big time in India, at least with me.
Right.
And so there's a mix of culture. The one thing that is a little difficult for us as piercers to jump over that hurdle is we at times are competing against jewelers who sell jewelry
and then offer piercing as kind of an add-on service.
Yes.
And then pierce the jewelry in.
Sure.
So, and they do it for free. So we can't compete with free. And that still exists because it's a traditional thing. And in fact, we have rituals. Certain parts of India has a ritual in the first 9 months of birth. Certain parts of India have rituals for the first time a girl gets her periods. So there are rituals where you don't do the piercing until that ritual, the prayer is done. There's a priest over there, and it's an amazing ceremony. And after that, traditionally a jeweler would do the piercing, and it would be trauma-based piercing. You just press the jewelry through.
Wow.
And then twist it into a pigtail. So like how we have the internal threadless jewelry over here, we have like probably a 4 or a 5 wire behind it. So the Indian traditional jewelry will have like a 12 or a 14 wire behind the top.
And just sharpened and
You just sharpen
or
it, you just
hopefully
push it in.
sharpened.
Yeah, and then you just snip the end in an angle with a pair of scissors, so it gets a little sharp, and you just push it in, and no hygiene, no sterilizing, nothing.
Right.
So that's one huge competition for us, and the funny thing is 90% of those piercings heal without a problem.
Sure.
So we don't have a rebuttal to tell a customer as to why we are charging this much, and why titanium, and stuff like that. Yeah.
Well, it's a really interesting point that you raise, because I teach a class about transitioning away from externally threaded jewellery, and one of the biggest points in the introduction to the class is it's amazing how much unhygienically done piercings, or piercings done not with the best material, it's amazing how much of them heal. And I think piercers that have only ever worked high end, they don't know that because they have confirmation bias, because they're seeing all the bad work, and you're like, the reality is it's not like the majority of yours heal and the majority of theirs fail. They're actually, the odds are closer than you'd think. So you really need a whole other set of skills to sell what you're doing beyond, it's just better, it's safer, because that's not going to work with the majority of people who have healed just fine.
Especially if it's generation after generation where it's healed fine.
So I think sometimes there is a bias for piercers who maybe aren't familiar with that side of things, where they're like, well, it's just so dangerous, it's just so unsafe, and you're like, I get what you're saying, but there are like a billion people who've had this done and they've healed, so you can't go up to them and say, well, that's dangerous, that's not going to work, when it has worked. So you need other things to sell yourself with, you need other arguments to make. So it's kind of about making people think a little bit more diversely about how to communicate with clients beyond just the default of like, it's safer. Like it's true, but it's not the best argument to win business in some areas.
Do you see with people who are pierced in a more traditional method, with the traumatic style piercing, do you see the same kind of prevalence that piercing bumps and little irritations here and there? Because like even when we perform piercings with what we would consider the best possible jewelry, you still get problems.
Yes.
We do. We do bumps.
The amount or the number of people who, remember I just spoke about how you twist the thread, the wire once it's gone through the tissue. The number of people that have had to literally cut the piece of jewelry because the entire wire behind has gone through. Some of them realize that it's gone through and they come in soon. Some of them don't even realize. And it's now completely covered and you just see the front, and so the number of people that we have to work with to troubleshoot these kind of piercings, also the butterfly back ones. It's the thing is that the aftercare aspect of it is also not covered anywhere by the jewelers or any other traditional ways of piercing, and people do not realize that there's so much more that they need to do once the piercing is done. Going to the right place, having the right hygiene, health and safety is the one part of it. There's another huge part which is much more longer,
care and healing.
Weeks and weeks. So yes, I would say that we get a lot of people with crazy bumps or embedded piercings or jewelries and stuff like that. It's crazy.
What would be the typical aftercare? Because who were we speaking to the other day where they said that saline was just impossible to get in their region? Like what would typical aftercare be that you would suggest?
Yes, saline is not very easily available. A few things, the options that I give people. One is keeping it clean in the most simplest way. Spend a few extra minutes under the shower. Keep it clean. Use a Q-tip or a hair dryer once you're done. Or if there's anything that you need to clean, then use a Q-tip once you're out of the shower, not when it's dry and stuff like that. We also have rock salt, so we recommend rock salt with water solutions. So that's easily available for us. Or sea salt, natural salt, is non-processed salt, is very easily available for us. So people use that and it has helped them. But I always tell them that if you just keep two basic things in place of making sure that it's clean and two, not playing with the jewelry.
Sure.
It goes a long way.
I think that's kind of the universal basics for the piercers that know how to make piercings heal is just don't touch it, just keep it clean.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, I don't know whether you'd agree, but whenever I get a piercing, I don't do anything to it.
Kind of, yeah. Like her with tattoos, with piercings, it's like she's already had it for 10 years. It's just like, nope.
Yeah.
I think I'm very similar in that I try and do very little, but on a daily basis. So I do clean the piercings in the shower. A big thing for me, because I live in a very humid city, is drying everything. And I have a lot of hair, and the hair takes hours to dry, and it's very, very humid. So for me, probably the most important step in aftercare is drying the piercings, and that means getting all the way under the jewelry, all the way at the back.
But because you're in a humid area.
Exactly.
If you were out here in Las Vegas,
somewhere very arid, it might not be the same issue.
Right.
But for me, it's actually more. I could apply the best products in the world or the best materials in the world. If I'm not drying my skin, it's going to be wet the entire day because the atmosphere won't allow for it to dry.
Right. India has a mix of different climates. I mean, I come from Mumbai, and we are
It's
right
massive.
by.
I mean, yes, a massive country,
and it's humid as well, and I completely but it's hot as well.
Yeah.
So
We're
heat
cold and humid.
Yeah, cold and humid
Somehow.
would not be a great combination, but we are hot and humid, and we're still fine.
Yeah.
But I think what I have also realized with my travels and me piercing in Europe as well as in India is that the sun makes a huge difference in the healing process or speeding up the healing process.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean that's my personal experience, and I've seen us Indians heal faster than any person in a colder country, or a country that has more colder periods than, as in we have our winters.
I'm sure that has to have a correlation with healthy blood flow and vitamin D and.
Yes, and one of the things that I tell most a lot of discussions that happened during the COVID era for us in India is that we as children literally have eaten mud while playing. As in health and safety has been at a different level for us altogether. So our immune systems are also probably a little stronger.
Okay.
Yes, of course, the atmosphere, all of that makes a difference. But in general, I think a lot of us third world countries still do not concentrate on the health and safety aspect of it, in general. So probably somewhere the body starts making us more immune to things for the lack of, but yeah.
So with some of the style or some of the requests that might come from clientele, is it because they're connected into Western social media culture, Western pop culture, or is it more of an inward? Is there a piercing scene in India?
So there are certain piercings that are piercing spots that are specific to regions and customs.
Okay.
One is a vertical helix, which is straight down, which is very specific to one of the states in India called Maharashtra. And the jewelry also has a special name, like Bugatti, like a Bugatti, so Bugatti kind of a thing.
Okay.
And it has two large chunks of gold pieces on either sides, like it looks like a dome of a temple, or so it's got two kind of domes. I'll show you all that jewelry. There's another region in Kashmir, which is another state, where you do an extremely high conch, and that's done 2 months before the lady gets married.
Okay.
So it's a wedding specific or marriage specific piercing. And the interesting part is that you run a chain through it once it's healed. So you do the piercing. A lot of times you'll put a stem of a neem tree to leave it to heal for a month, and then once it's healed, you will put a chain around it. It comes down here, both the chains, till the chest, and it has either it has pom pom kind of jewelry or big metal danglers kind of a thing.
That sounds amazing.
It's absolutely gorgeous.
So when you say the stem of a neem tree, are you piercing with like a prick from the tree, or are you doing the piercing and then feeding through?
There are a few things from a custom perspective. There is, now I can't remember the name of the tree. So there's one tree that has a thorn that's about 2 inches long.
Mm-hmm.
So it is also customary to use that thorn to pierce. So there's a prayer and all of that and all. The other way to do it is that they would just use a silver wire, just prick it through, and then put the neem, stem of the neem tree.
Okay. What kind of mill are we talking? Like thickness for because to wear a chain through it.
So they would start with the jewelry or the stem. I mean, the wire is about 2 mm.
Okay. So 12 gauge.
Yes, 12 gauge, yeah.
Wow.
And the chain also is dainty, so it's within the 12 gauge, and sometimes they will try to stretch it also. They also run a thread through it. So there are 2 or 3 types of dangling jewelry for that similar piercing. One is a chain, one is a thread. So you have a red color double braided thread that goes through, and then you have golden pieces of jewelry falling. Then there is another very unique piece of jewelry that they make, which has we have chain adornments that we do. So it's a similar way. So it's like a labret, and on both the sides you dangle a chain. Instead of the chain going through the passage, you just dangle a chain through the labret. So yeah,
sounds amazing.
It's beautiful. I mean, there are different parts of the country. Like we have a very traditional another state in the south. We have a traditional piece of jewelry that goes through from the top of the entire ear and comes down and hooks in back into the lobe. And it's like a half an inch strip of golden chains with pearls on it. So there are like hundreds of pearls on it, and like 4 strips going through.
Yeah.
And beautiful piece of traditional jewelry and stuff. Internal threaded jewelry was invented
in India.
Yes,
Yeah.
and hundreds of years ago. And threadless jewelry was invented in India. And
Yeah.
of course, the threading in India is probably half a millimeter shorter than the stem.
I have a few Indian clients that I've worked with, and sometimes they'll bring in traditional jewelry,
Yes.
and I'll notice that the thread is very, very long, very, very thin, but always like well made. And
Yes,
it's just
yes.
like it's really interesting to see where people's logic has brought them for jewelry, especially if it's not from like this lineage of this body jewelry company,
Yes,
just
yes.
different craftspeople, artisans out there. Their
Yes.
logic brings them to something that works perfectly. It's just so
True,
different.
True.
Yeah.
While you speak about craftsmen, I'd like to also bring a point which I spoke to a lot of piercers over here, is that in India we buy gold by the weight. The government publishes the daily gold rate on the newspaper. So if I want to go buy a piece of jewelry, no matter what I buy, whether it's earrings, necklaces, chain, whatever, once I've picked it up, the jeweler will put it on a weighing scale. Whatever the weight is, you multiply it by today's rate, and that's the cost of the jewelry.
Okay.
There is no cost or a price for craftsmanship in India.
Yeah.
2 reasons. One is as of last month, we surpassed being the highest populated country. So we have a lot of people to do the job, And so we have a lot of craftsmen, we have a lot of traditional craftsmen, and they are on a particular salary and stuff like that and all. So that's one of the reasons. Second reason is that, even the goldsmiths, the owners of the businesses would buy gold bricks at a particular price. And by the time it's ready to sell, the cost
price will
of gold
go
has
up.
already gone up,
Right.
So he kind of equates that cost to the salary given to the craftsman.
Right.
So for us, like I bought this piece of jewelry at BMX for about 180 euros, and today if I go to sell it in India, it will not be worth even 20 euros.
Wow.
The moment I put it on a weighing scale, it's the weight of gold, and this is not even 22 carat. It's
Is it that they don't value it, or is it just it's a completely different system about how the jewelry is manufactured?
There are a few new jewelry companies, like conglomerates, I would say, that have come into play in the last probably decade, and they charge for craftsmanship. But any traditional jeweler's shop, where we would have probably 5 jewelry shops per kilometer across the country.
Okay.
They will charge you only by weight. So it's not that we do not it's not that we do not appreciate the art, but maybe it's also that we do not appreciate the artists because there are so many of them.
So, right.
That's
it. Would be like if there was 50 body piercers working on every street. After a while, people would be like, well, anybody can do it.
Exactly, yeah. So that's a huge difference for us. Like for me, when I go through the jewelry options that I get internationally, of course, I'm not talking about designs. I'm just talking about jewelry options. Designs are very different that I see across when I'm in Europe or US and stuff like that in comparison to what we get in India. But it is extremely difficult for me to convince an Indian customer that this piece of jewelry would cost you $500. The first question would be, is it 22 carat? Second question would be, what's its weight?
Okay.
So it's very, like there is a niche clientele that will not question me when I tell them that this is made by this company, and this is what it costs. They will buy it. But a larger clientele will ask me these questions.
Okay.
Coming back to one of the questions that you asked earlier, whether what's influencing the Indian piercing scene or the curation, it's I think a mix. My team and I have been constantly throwing art in the form of Instagram posts and Facebook posts and all. So there is a lot of awareness that we've been bringing into the scene, that these are options available as well. And also the influx of so many TikTok videos, so many Instagram reels, people get to see what's happening across the world as well, So they'll send us a picture of some international, either a influencer or a piercer or a piercer's handle, saying that I'd like to do this piercing, can you get me this jewelry? More often than not, we are able to convert it with the jewelry that we have. But if they ask for that specific jewelry, then they wait for a while till we are able to order it for them. Because when a specific piece is asked for, we can tell them the price and we can order it, and we know that it's not lying in the shelf for like 6 months or a year, and it's dead stock. So so
that's really cool.
Yeah.
So when I hear gold, as an American piercer, I hear money.
Yes.
But economically, I would imagine things are very different in India. So where does that? Where do those two things cross? Like, being able to make a living as a body piercer, moving things like gold, probably every day, all day, and then the economics of the clientele in India. So
I was the first piercer to introduce titanium pieces of jewelry in the studio. I was also the first piercer to introduce gold jewelry in the studio. At this point in time, we probably have maybe 5 piercers only piercers in the country.
Okay.
Whole country of 2.5 billion people. Because they are all other tattoo artists who are just doing a piercing because somebody's walked through the door.
Sure.
There are some very good tattoo artists who are also very good piercers. So that combination also is there. But there's not a lot of studios that would house gold jewelry, because we are still somewhere at that thin line we've not crossed, where a customer would come to a tattoo and a piercing studio to buy gold.
Sure. They go to a jeweler to buy gold.
They'll go to a jewelry shop, because like I said, we've got about 5 good jewelry shops per kilometer.
Yeah.
So maybe 3, maybe not 5, but yeah,
but
know what I mean.
Quite a few.
Yeah, quite a few. So it's also like a doctor or a barber. You would have families that would be stuck to a particular jeweler for years or generations, and you would only go to them. The other part of the gold by weight in India exists also because it's investment.
Because gold is always gold.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's pure for us.
Mm-hmm.
So today when not putting the other companies down, like say for example, I buy gold from a particular company that makes it in Europe or the US, and it's 14 carats or 18 carats. I buy it for say $200. Tomorrow if I want to sell it, unless I have someone who appreciates the art, I will not be able to sell it for $200.
Because of the lower carat, or
Yes, because of the low carat,
Yeah.
Because we get 22 carat and the jeweler gives us a certificate that tomorrow when you bring it, this is the weight that I sold you at.
Yeah.
And this is the weight into that day's rate is what I will buy it back at. So there are jewelry shops that will also buy the gold, not only the ones that you bought from them, but you would have bought it from anywhere.
Because they can just melt it down and turn it into
Exactly.
something else.
And bring it back to the natural form
Yeah.
and turn it to whatever you want.
Yeah.
So for a lot of Indians, we probably might be the second largest economy, or probably in the first 5 largest economies that holds gold inside the house. Every Indian, no matter how rich or poor he or she is, we have certain rituals or festivals where we go and buy gold, even if it is 1 gram. It's customary to go and buy gold. So people will go and buy a coin, a gold coin, a pure 24 karat gold coin, just a gram or lesser, or whatever one person can afford, and it's like a prayer and all of that, and it's customary. So any Indian will have gold at any given point in time, which is something that they would save for a rainy day. That will always be worth what it is worth as of today. So if I had bought gold 20 years ago for $50, today it would definitely be about $200. You know what I mean? So it's always an investment option more than an adornment as well,
Sure.
but also
But they see the added benefit of
Exactly.
like, this is still
Yes.
valuable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's passed through generations. It's given as wedding gifts, and it's passed down from a mother to a daughter, or stuff like that.
It almost makes me feel like when I hear descriptions like this, it almost makes me feel like what we're doing is much more disposable in the long-term sense of it, because there has been body jewelry. I'm sure you have the same thing that I have, Lola, is like I have a box of like all the old jewelry that I've worn, and it's like I just see it as junk.
Yeah.
Because it's like steel, titanium,
Yes.
maybe a couple of gold pieces here or there, but 14 karat, 18 karat.
True.
But yeah, to look at it in that way sounds like a big shift.
But this visit of mine over here has, so up until now, in the last 4-5 years, I've been experimenting making gold jewelry, which can be used for initial piercing, so implant grade options and stuff like that. Because the gold that you get in India, whatever amalgamation that's done is usually copper, zinc, silver, nickel, and stuff like that, which will not be the best option to use for initial piercing. But I've been concentrating on the entire piece, and while here I've realized I don't need to concentrate on the entire piece, but just the top. I can still use titanium backs and just the top. So when I go back this time, I'll probably try to experiment on Indian designs that
But
can
with
be used
more
in-
like a European or like
Yes.
a US titanium
Yes,
backing.
yes,
yeah.
yeah.
I think you kind of touched on something, Ryan, when you mentioned about how jewellery feels a little bit more disposable in the West. And I mean, you have a little cachet of jewellery because you are a body piercer
Yeah.
who's been piercing for 25 years.
And I'm a pack rat and I'm nostalgic.
You're going to have that. And yeah, I have a little tub of things because I have more jewellery than piercings, so I don't want to get any more piercings because they're sore. But I think there's definitely a different mentality that I experience with my clients, and I know you experience with yours as well, where it's like you have to really explain to people, this is gold and it's valuable. Please be careful with it. Please treat it with care. It's a lot more delicate than titanium, than steel. And it's almost like when something happens, like when there's a breakage of jewelry or something like that, people are like, why did it break? It's expensive. And I'm like, right, it's not expensive because it's indestructible. It's expensive because it's made of gold, or in part made of gold. And there is that kind of like different mentality where people, when they spend a lot of money, they think they're buying something that's that's indestructible, that they can do what they want with, and you have to really explain, like, no, this is a lovely thing that you're buying. It's expensive because of its scarcity, because of its value, and because it's going to increase in value over time. So, like, please take care of your thing. And I think there is just that kind of like different approach to it in the client base, where you really have to educate people that, like, you have to be careful with this. And I think because of, like, you know, consumer culture and Amazon and all that kind of stuff, people are very detached from the idea that you're supposed to take care of your things.
Right.
Whereas, like, I don't know if culturally it's different, where people are far more aware that, like, this is valuable, it's a nice thing. You should be looking after this.
What you're explaining in culture is that people have kind of a connection to gold, and they understand gold and the value of gold.
Yes.
Sometimes I think U.S. clients, they only see gold as a color. They don't understand gold as a material, or you know, its connection to human history.
The finiteness of it on the planet.
Yeah, and then, you know, plated gold kind of devaluing it mentally for them also, and things like that. Yeah.
I think largely, you know, our ancestors have kind of got it ingrained into our minds that everything that you save is a saving, but gold is your final saving. As in, you would go to the gold after you've, you know, depleted everything that you've saved for.
Right.
So somewhere in our mind, we do know that, okay, whatever gold we buy will always keep us safe against any harm that comes to us or our loved ones in the future. Loss of job, loss of, you know, spouse or job or anything of that sort. Gold. So there, we have, what do you call it? Like a pawn shop. So we have gold pawn shops as well, where you leave gold at a particular price, and there's an interest that's charged, and it's bloody high. It's like 27% and all those things. And all. People will leave their gold there, take the money in case of an emergency. More often than not, people will never be able to come back to buy that gold
because of the interest.
Unfortunately, because things may have not turned in their favor or whatever. So it's the person benefiting out of the entire thing. But yes, gold is a big commodity that we have, and you know, a big saving commodity as well. Yeah. Cool. In fact, we trade in gold. I don't know. I'm not too sure whether it happens over here. Yeah. But we trade in gold, so it's like a share. Yeah. In India. So yeah.
It's all really fascinating and interesting. You know, sometimes American piercers just kind of focus on what's right in front of them and not what's around them. So it's fascinating to hear all this.
I mean, with all the learning that I take back from here, I'm looking forward to bring back certain things from my culture into the open, which like when I speak to different piercers across the globe, and you know, it's like, oh, is that what happens there? Like, I mean, you're saying, oh, is that what? Like, I was speaking to somebody about internal threaded jewelry and handed down jewelry, and we buy gold by weight. And that piercer was telling me that today I'm able to understand that I should not argue with my Indian customers anymore, because I understand their mentality, because they keep on asking me, why is this so expensive? I'm ready to pay for it, but I need to know why it is worth this much. So then she told me that the conversation with you has, you know, literally enlightened me to be able to understand or be patient with them, because we've never known this part of gold being, you know, like a commodity or being bought by weight and stuff like that.
So you know, if I were ever asked a question like that in my studio, what would be the appropriate way to respond to someone? Like, you know, if someone comes in for a nostril piercing and I'm piercing them with like a 2 or a 2.5 prong set, and it's got a CZ or a diamond or whatever, and titanium back, and they ask questions like that, as a U.S. piercer, sometimes it might be like, well, it costs that much because I'm the fucking piercing wizard, and you know. But what would be the way to interact with someone?
My rebuttal would be the cost of any product would be directly proportional to the cost of making that product. You know, not just the raw material of that product. And for you, it would be like it's made in the United States, or it's made in, you know, in Europe. So there's a cost to the artist that makes it.
Right, the craftsperson making the jewelry.
Making the jewelry, he's being paid by the hour. Right. And it's a specialized skill set. And there's a cost to it. So all of that put together, it's not just the cost of gold. but everything that's gone behind making that piece beautiful. So I think that would be the best answer that I can think of right now.
Sure.
Which I cannot give it back home, but
Right.
you definitely can.
Yet, but
Yeah.
So we're in
For
Vegas.
me, sorry to butt through. For me, the answer would be, I'm importing it from so and so place.
Right.
You can go onto their website, look at the price.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm still giving you cheaper than what's there on the website. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that would be my rebuttal kind of a thing.
Yeah. It makes me think about it in a different way. Sorry.
I was just going to say, when I'm asked similar things about even things like Thai basics, when someone's like, why is a librette post £15 here when I can get one for £1 down the street? I just have to keep it simple and be like, it's not this librette post. It's not from this company. It hasn't been through the same level of quality control.
Sure.
Can't be verified in the same way. And all of those different steps involve manpower and people power, and it costs money. You can buy something that looks like this, but it's not going to be this exact thing.
Right.
And I think that's where people need to just realize that there are things like different brands and different quality levels as there are with anything that you could buy, even if it looks very similar. So I really just try and focus on the fact that you can't get this exact thing. You can get something similar, but it's not going to be exactly the same as what I'm selling. You're buying something else. We haven't all bought it from this one factory on earth that makes all of the same stuff.
Right.
So I really try and focus on that as well with customers.
The same question for titanium pieces. The answer that I give is that it's implant grade titanium, the same metal that goes inside your body when you break your bones.
I say that often. It's the same thing you would make a replacement hip or a knee out of.
Yeah. So if it's that high quality for a human, it's the best that can go into your body as a piercing, unless you're an alien, is my answer always.
Right. So we're in Las Vegas. We're at the APP conference, and this is the final day. We're getting ready to go home. You'll be moving on in your journey soon.
Yes.
What have been some of the standout moments? I'm sure it's difficult to kind of narrow down a list on a week with so much going on, but what have been some of the things that have stood out for you at this conference?
I think from the conference perspective, I've had two learning areas, or rather two geographical spots.
Yeah.
One was a classroom, and the other was the heart bar.
Okay.
So these are the two spots where I learned a lot of things, very official or education, school style learning in the classroom, and a very private one-on-one session at the heart bar, where I learned so much from different piercers from different parts of the world, and what they do and why they do it, and also methodologies that are adapted by each piercer for their own ease, or something that they've picked up from somewhere, and stuff like that. So from a learning perspective, I think it's been super awesome for me. Something like this does not exist in India or anywhere close to that. The other aspect of it which amazed me is that, it's almost 1,500 people that were there for this conference this year. We were a part of the entire volunteer team as scholars, and the way the entire thing was planned and executed was, I would say, amazing. Because we as artists, we as piercers, we are not normal people. We are difficult to deal with.
I don't know what you mean.
And so 1,500 of those types to manage, deal, execute. It was absolutely fabulous by everybody who's put in the efforts to plan this, execute it. It's just another amazing thing to learn as well. I also come from an event management background, and we do different things as well. But this was completely different.
Yeah, a monster, really.
Yeah. A lot to learn, lot to take back, and it's been fun, I think, overall. And also, Ryan, I think you've hooked me up with a few piercers, because after I got my visa, getting my visa was like a hell of a challenge.
I'm sure.
I got it about 2 weeks before I traveled, and thanks to you, Ryan, that you've put me up with different piercers. Like I landed in California, Lola, and So Ryan sent me to Paul King's studio. I met Mick Rose and I shadowed him. He also got me on a motorcycle ride with his girlfriend, and that was super fabulous, up the mountains. And I met Alana at 2 different studios of hers, Rose Gold and Lux, and then went down to John Johnson. He's another, maestro out there, and been to his studio, Ron Garza's studio. So it's been a fabulous journey so far. I'm still meeting a few more piercers, and I'm really looking forward to see not only their spaces but how they work. And each person has a different way to do the piercing, to set up the piercing. It's nice to see different perspectives. And sometimes I will ask questions like, okay, I seen this one do this, and why are you doing it? And the interesting thing that I have experienced here with this visit and also shadowing so many different piercers is that I've never gotten a single person answer me because that's how it is. They've given me a logical reason as to why they think that this is good for them, or this is easier for them, or they like to do it that way. So it's not like you just mentioned some time ago, I'm the piercing god, and that's why this is how it's cost. So I've never got an answer like that. So it's been great to learn so many perspectives, see why what is done, like multiple gloves, sterile gloves, the way you set up, or playing with needles, and so yeah, it's been absolutely fabulous, is what I can say.
That's fantastic. Yeah, the whole that's just how it's done. I've gotten that answer a few times, especially earlier in my career, and I feel like that's the answer you would give a child.
Yeah,
that's just how it is. Just go to bed. But it's like when you're talking to a colleague, someone, and you want to give them information so that they can kind of think through it logically as to what might work for them.
True. Yeah,
that's great. This is fantastic. So, do you have plans to be at BMX or UK APP again in the fall, or take a year off?
I will be.
Okay.
That's on the cards. So I'll plan that out once I'm back home. I mean, I'm looking forward to that. I would also like to. I mean, after being here and speaking, I'm hearing about so many different sister organizations of APP across the globe. I think in the next few years, that'll be my endeavor to try and go to different APPs as well, see that culture, see that country, or that part of the continent.
Amazing. Do you think that you could see maybe an Indian piercer group, or maybe in the future an Indian piercer organization, or do you feel like it's still maybe a little adversarial?
To be very honest, Ryan, today India, or the professional Indian piercing scene is probably 15 or 20 years where you were 15 or 20 years ago. So we are still in its nascent stages. I mean, though piercing's been there with us for like thousands of years, but the professional aspect of it, we are still in the nascent stages.
Sure.
And just before I came out over here, like I was telling you a little earlier, I put together, I just opened a new Facebook and Instagram page called the Piercers Association of India, and the acronym kind of is PAIN, P-A-I-N. So that just works out perfectly. And when I go back, I will interact with my colleagues, and I will look at putting together a group and meeting up with different people, whether it is virtually or physically. That's plus great. Virtually, stuff like that.
Because I'm sure you're bringing a massive amount of information
yes, and I'm happy to share it with my brothers and sisters back there in India, and I really look forward to sharing the information, and maybe not so soon to have something the level of APP, because even from a cost perspective, it is different for us, or difficult for us. I am not the most expensive piercing studio in the country. Our pricings are dependent on which part of the city you're in, whether you're in the same city or not. But it's somewhere in the psychologically, people will be like, I'll go to that part of the city, which is the posh part of the city.
I think she knows exactly what you mean, and I do too, because she tells me about it. Like in Glasgow, it's like, well, there's the posh areas, and like when she was opening her studio, she wanted it to be near the high street and have it be in an area where affluent people went to spend money.
Yeah, like just a neutral area where anybody could get to pretty easily.
Right.
So people would be open to spend more money for the same service at even a substandard quality, higher amounts to spend than where I am, kind of a thing. So that's like a constant fight. And today I'm priced at close to about $13 for a basic lobe piercing, titanium jewelry included. Okay, and people still find me super expensive.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have at least about 25 to 30% of people who will walk out of the studio saying, "Oh no, you're too expensive," because there are other people who are doing it for $3.
Yeah.
$2.
Yeah.
Of course, free as well. It's a different story. But so when I look at the jewelry expectations that APP has from a quality perspective, or certified jewelry companies that APP has today, I will not be able to afford to spend $6 to $8 on jewelry alone. Leave aside the needle and everything else that goes for the piercing, plus the overheads of the studio and and still do a piercing for $13. I'll probably be just cut to cut, or I'll be just doing piercings for free, or I'll be doing it at a loss. So we are still a long way off before we can get down to the quality. I mean, the education aspect of it has started. I'm trying to do whatever I can and roping in other experienced piercers to be a part of this. So we'll definitely have a community. Whether we would have APP in the next 2 years or 5 years is a thing that we will get to know in time, is what I would say.
Well, so when the first jewellery upgrade that I ever sold was when I started piercing. It was £15 for a nose piercing, jewellery included. And then we said, well, and it was just a little nostril screw. It wasn't even anything, it came pre-bent. There's nothing special about it. And we went, right, well, we'll get jeweled ones and we'll sell them for £3 extra, and it'll be £18 instead of 15. And people would fight it every single day, like £3 extra for this. And this would have just been, 13 years ago, something like that. And compared to where I am now, the difference is just bananas. And the difference, the way that I look at it is, you have to get to a point where you realize you're not competing with the cheaper places, they're competing with you. And when you shift that mentality, you stop apologizing for your pricing. It makes a huge difference. But I think you raise a really good point, because there is a lot of very kind of reductive reasoning that's sometimes put towards us in developing spaces, where people say, oh, well, you're just undervaluing yourself, just charge more. And you're like, I get what you're saying, but there is a ceiling economically to what the middle class can spend. And there isn't a big enough upper class to fund your business in the area. And if, like the working poor or the poor class can't afford to shop with you, you're relying on a real demographic. And there is such a thing as client alienation and overreaching in your costs. So I think that growing things organically, the way that you have been, and just taking your customers on the journey with you, instead of just like pulling the rug out from under them and
force them,
saying this how much it is. I think that's really, really great. I think that in 5 years, in 10 years, like if you're at $13 now, it'll be at $30, it'll be at $50. I'm super confident that that's going to happen, because I would never have believed, arguing with people over £3 like 13 years ago, that I would just be like, that my base would be around 50. Like, no way. And I work in the same city, I work in the same square mile, I work on the same clients. So nothing has changed. It's just like my business and my outlook, and putting in the time to take people with you. And I think that it sounds like you're doing that. You're taking your clients with you. You're not just telling them how it is.
Yeah, I'm trying my best as far as that is concerned, and I'm constantly confused on that same thing that you just said, where whether, like, I know that I'm doing way more than any other piercing studio in the country, considering I was the first in a lot of things. I can boast about it because I've been that. But I'm still not the most expensive place in the country. There are people who live in like Hollywood. So we have Bollywood in Mumbai. So people who live around that posh localities, they charge way higher and don't even use titanium. They use like basic steel jewelry, not even like surgical steel or whatever.
Because they're selling probably a brand.
Yes. And I think,
what was that?
The door?
Is that the...
It might have been housekeeping.
Housekeeping? Well, we don't have to check out until 11. You two can continue talking.
So that's a constant confusion for me, whether it's time for me to increase the price, or because just before the lockdown, 2018 actually, I had increased my prices. Had gone to about, it would convert to about $17 to $18 for my basic piercing. That And I had a sudden drop of business, like going less than 50% of my business.
Yeah.
I'd increased my prices in 2018 or 19.
Mm-hmm.
And because I had $13 constantly for the last 8-10 years maybe. And then I just increased it in somewhere in 18, and then business dropped by 50%. And I panicked. And then lockdown came through, And when we reopened, we went back to the $13 price. Though things got more expensive for us, gloves were at some ridiculous prices during those times. But yeah, plus my customs, they charged me about 83% duty to get
83%.
Yes.
Huh?
And I never imagined it, because whenever I used to travel, I should come back with all my basic stems and whatever I needed from Trust in Germany. And but during the lockdown, I had to order, and I realized and that too 83% was not a fixed thing. They said now it's 83, it could be 150 next time. So I was like, okay, I can't even think of ordering, shipping it into the country, because I'm getting it at home more expensive than my selling price. Didn't make sense to me. Anyways, so I've been in that constant catch-22 situation, whether I should increase the price and demand what my services are worth, or my experience and my services are worth, or stick to the geographical or the economical pricing that I should. That's a constant confusion.
I think that I hear things that I hear. What you're saying is I hear similar things from piercers around the world, even sometimes in the States, where they're just they're at this growth point where it's like, well, how do I balance, affordable for my clients, but with growth, sustainable growth for my shop? And
right.
Yeah, I think a lot of us have had to go through, maybe not to the same scale, but a similar kind of circumstances. Yeah. Well, I think I need to start winding it down, because we have to start packing up all this stuff, and then we have to get out of this room, because I think housekeeping just tried to come in and
do you all want
out.
to keep your bags in my room or something like that? We can do that as well.
Well, I don't know. I think we might just leave it downstairs at the Bell Captain.
Whatever.
I'm not really sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But I appreciate that.
Just in case you're out later or something.
Yeah, because
I'm just around, so I'm not doing anything much. So.
Well, okay. Well, so if people want to be able to contact you, website, social media?
So I'm Mr. Piercer. It's very simple. mrpiercer on Instagram and Facebook as well, but I don't use my Facebook page much. I'm Jason D'Souza on Facebook, but Mr. Piercer on Instagram would be the best option to connect with me. I've had a lot of piercers who have spoken to me as to their Indian clients when they go back home, whom they can connect with, because there are a lot of people who are a lot of piercers who were from university town setups.
Oh, sure.
And they've got students who go back home to India, and they wanted to get in touch with a piercer for their post-care and stuff like that. So I'm happy to take on, any of the work that happens across the United States, and they want to refer to me. And if they're not in my town, I will refer your customers to other piercers that I can refer to. But otherwise, it's Mr. Piercer. Yeah.
That's great. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down with us, but I also really appreciate, in a certain sense, it's got to take a lot of courage to put yourself out there and to try to come to a brand new conference, to apply for the scholarship, all those things. So
Thank
just
you.
want to say that.
I mean, it's my honor to be a part of this podcast, Ryan, and it's you guys are doing fabulous, and it's been fun, and the entire chat, I think, with Lola and you has been superb.
Yeah, it's been great. Anything you want to say?
No, well, just that I think that Jason's a really good example of why people should apply to the scholarship program, because you mentioned that you encourage Jason to apply. You encourage so many people to apply that don't apply in the end. And I think,
because
I don't know
that,
if
I would never be able to get it.
Right, they think, like they don't want to put themselves out there. Put yourself out there. I think you're a really good example of someone who put themselves out there, and it's like you've crammed 10 years worth of experience into a year because you did that. So I think that if people can take anything away, it's like be like Jason.
Yeah.
Yes. I would reach out to anybody and everybody who think that scholarship with the APP is difficult. It's not difficult, but you got to give it a try. Whether you get it or not this year, you'll definitely get it one of the years. But don't not try for it with the fear of rejection. Is all that I can say. Yeah.
That's perfect advice.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
It's been
very
a
much.
pleasure, Ryan and Lola. Thank you so much.
And I look forward to seeing you
Yes,
in the fall.
we'll definitely meet again.
Great. So thank you so much for talking to me, Jason. Pretty cool that we have our first scholar from India. I really always love the wider perspective that our international scholars can give us. It really makes the conference experience, the volunteer family experience, much more enriching when you realize that it's a shared passion throughout the world, and you can kind of connect with someone and you can have this bond even though you've just met them, and completely different cultural differences and countries and all these things. So I'm really happy that I could get an interview with you, Jason. I look forward to seeing your class in the future and to running into you at another conference down the road. I want to say extra special thank you again to everyone who signed up and supported me at patreon.com/RyanPBA. Tons of content available on the archive on demand whenever you sign up, and lots of new content planned for the summer. I have a poll up right now kind of deciding whether my next video will be about tongue piercings or antitragus piercings. So if you're a supporter on the Archmage tier, go and cast your vote. Let me know what you're into. Keep in mind that I will be making both the videos. It's really just which one do you want to see first. Thank you so much to Lola Slider for always being brilliant and beautiful and being a fantastic partner in and out of the ring. Thank you for listening to this show, and I'm going to stop talking. I'll be back with more episodes soon. For more information about the show, visit piercingwizardpodcast.com or like Piercing Wizard Podcast on Facebook. For more info about your host, visit precisionbodyarts.com or search Ryan PBA on Facebook, Instagram, and Tumblr. If you enjoy the show, you can subscribe on iTunes, Apple Podcast, and Google Play. Music by Benny B. Blanco. Show copyright 2017, Precision Body Arts LLC, all rights reserved.